Sheldon Poon.
I have a bunch of contacts here.
Hey man.
Hey, how's it going?
Good man, you?
Good.
How's it going?
Good. What are you doing?
Yeah, thanks.
Do I have time to kind of run to the washroom before?
Yeah, go for it. And I got you some water. There's some tea also if you want some tea.
Yeah.
So yeah, go for it.
Yeah. Okay. So as soon as I'm at the office, I just like start downing coffee.
Sheldon Poon.
Hey man.
How's it going?
Good. How are you, man?
Good.
This is a great setup.
Awesome. Yeah, it changed a lot since the last time we did a podcast.
Yeah, for sure.
I think no. Did you do a podcast with him there, or was it back when it was the other producer?
It was
Sam.
think it was the other producer, and it was at your place.
Oh yeah.
And I think something went wrong with the equipment, and you lost most of the files.
I lost some of the visuals, but I have the audio file. I still have
really?
the audio file. Yeah, it's
Oh,
on
I
my
didn't know that.
iTunes. But yeah, that was a while ago. That was my humble beginnings
It was
of
like over a year ago, I think.
doing my podcast in my mama's basement. But we've upgraded ever since. So
I can see that.
yeah, dude, I saw your profile on the WeWork screens. On the
really?
monitors. Yeah,
That's funny. I literally just canceled the account like 2 days ago.
Oh no way.
Yeah.
No, I saw it a while ago actually.
Yeah, that makes sense. We were joined the network.
You can put your headphones on if you want.
Okay. Are we starting right away or?
Well, yeah, we could pretty much.
Okay.
We could pretty much start like this. So I'll just do a formal introduction, and then after this, nothing is formal, unless you want it to be for yourself. But
it's up to you. Whatever you wanna.
yeah.
Yeah.
Welcome to Chimp Talk. I'm your host Sam Ashipur, and I'm here with Sheldon Poon. So yeah, before I start, you want to tell people like how we know each other?
Yeah. I'm trying to think now because it was back in the day when we were both doing philosophy class together.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't remember how we like first started interacting, but
I think we were just kind of like always we were in a bunch of the same classes together because we
Yeah.
were obviously doing philosophy together.
right.
And then I think what ended up happening was we were always the guys like kind of sitting in the back of the class, minding our own business. And then we were just chatting, and bit by bit we got to know each other.
Yeah, and you were very supportive. You tried to help me out when I first started a podcast, like I was saying before, back in my mama's basement. And then it was just my humble beginnings, I guess, and like podcasts that I never published.
Yeah, exactly.
But thanks for coming again and being supportive. I did try to get you on like before, and you were telling me how like crazy busy you were.
Yeah, sorry about that. I know you've
Yeah,
you've been asking me for a while. Yeah, basically because I've been running my company, right?
Yeah.
So as we were kind of growing, as we were kind of getting busier, I didn't get a chance to finish my philosophy classes, which is why you haven't been seeing me. And because of that, I just had to kind of focus and start saying no to a few things and kind of get stuff under control. And now that we're at the point where we have more regular clients and things are a little bit more like just day-to-day operations, I'm starting to start meeting up with friends again and start taking people up on podcasts and starting to do meetings again. So it's been kind of nice.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, so
Have the mic closer to your mouth.
Oh yeah. I don't know, like
You'll hear it.
like this.
You're gonna hear yourself. Do you hear yourself speaking now?
Yeah, I can. Oh, okay.
Yeah,
okay.
that's a lot better.
Sorry about that.
Yeah, make yourself comfortable.
Yeah,
and,
I'm still kind of like I'm sorry because I end up like I didn't end up driving here in the end. So because I was running late, I just jumped on the metro and I kind of just like ran over. So I'm all like kind of still hot and bothered from like running over here from the mall.
I got you some water. So
yeah, thanks. I
take
appreciate
your time.
that.
But yeah, you were telling me how I was telling you how I saw you on the WeWork screens on the monitors.
Yeah,
So
that's it.
what happened?
So basically, like when was this? Probably about a year ago now. When we had first kind of started the company, we started like kind of reaching out to more and more people, and we started getting more and more contacts. And a lot of our contacts were actually based here at WeWork. And so because so many of my contacts were based here, we decided, okay, we should get like an account just so that we can network with them a little bit better. And through those contacts, through the WeWork network, we actually ended up meeting quite a few interesting people that we still kind of partner up with and became clients. It's just that we've gotten to a point now where like I'm not really active on the WeWork network, so we kind of had a discussion. We're like, we don't really need any more. Most of our contacts have since moved on from WeWork, the contacts that we have built relationships with that are still here, we talk to all the time. So we're not really getting any benefit from it. It's nothing against WeWork. It's a great place, great platform. It's just that it's not right for us anymore. So I literally just canceled the account, I think like 2 days ago. So it's just funny that you happened to see me on the network.
At first I was like, oh damn, I know that guy. And I got excited there. I read one of your articles that you posted on LinkedIn about your clients, because for people that don't know, you're a programmer. So maybe you should talk about how you became a programmer, because I know you were a teacher before.
Yeah.
So how did that happen?
Well, actually, I've been programming probably for the last 20 years or so. Like I started when I was a teenager. So
if you want, face more towards the camera, because you're gonna have actually, like your back against it.
Give me 1 sec. I'm just like, I'm like dying from like heat just because I'm like.
Aren't you? Don't you do programming as well? Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Our producer here does some programming, so he's gonna know what you're talking about. I'm just gonna pretend like I know what you're talking about.
Hey, fair enough.
So that's what's gonna happen.
Sorry. Is it okay if I just take the headphones off for like 2 minutes, just because like with the heat and everything?
Dude, you could do no headphones. We could do no headphones if you want. Okay. Yeah, that's fine.
Just let me know if I'm not speaking loud enough or whatever.
He'll let you know.
Okay.
Fist away, so about 2 inches away from the mic.
That close?
Well, because usually the preferable, it would be close to your chin.
Okay.
And from this point, the volume would be picked up pretty well.
Okay.
It would be optimal, yeah, pretty much.
Okay. Yeah, so like kind of like this is kind of okay, or like is this still too far?
That's fine, bro. I think you're good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Go ahead, talk.
Hello, testing 1 2 3.
Yeah, you're fine.
That's okay.
Yeah, that's fine.
All right. Sorry, just give me a second.
Yeah.
I don't do well when it's like hot out.
Right.
And then, like I said, the run over.
Yeah, you're sweating. But you should have told me, man. Like, we could have taken our time.
No,
you could have taken a breather. You could have, I don't know, chilled.
Yeah, it's because like I was just saying before that basically this is like a normal work day for me. So I was at the office this morning, and then I realized what time it was. So I kind of scrambled, put everything away, jumped in my car. I left my car at my apartment, and then because I was running late with traffic and everything, I just hopped on the metro. When I got to, because we were supposed to meet at 4, and I think I got off the metro at like 4:05. So I just like got off and I just like ran over. So I'm still like hot from like the run.
Yeah, it's fine. Yeah, next time you could just like text me and be like, yeah, I'll be 30 minutes late, and just take your time.
No, I appreciate that. I just didn't want to, I want to be respectful too, because I know your time is valuable as well.
Yeah, man. But once again, thanks for coming.
Yeah, no, it's my pleasure. So yeah, you were asking me about kind of like my programming.
Yeah, how you became a programmer, and you were a teacher. You were like elementary?
High school.
High school?
Yeah. I taught high school for a few years doing media and computer stuff with the kids.
Oh, no way.
So basically like I started off, I started programming I think in the late 90s.
Damn,
I started putting together.
Early.
Yeah, I was lucky, right? I was one of those kids that had internet like very, very early on. So like by secondary 3, secondary 4, I think I had internet access at home. And back in the day, I don't know if you guys might be too young to remember this, but there was something called GeoCities and Angel Fire, and there's all these like free, you know what I'm talking about.
He's laughing. His mic is not on, but he's laughing, but I don't know what that is.
Yeah. So basically, if you're old enough to remember the internet of like the 90s and the early 2000s, back in the day, so before the dot-com bubble kind of crashed, everybody knew that there was this massive move towards online. So everybody started knowing that online internet was going to be the next big thing, but nobody knew what it was going to look like. So what happened was you had all these companies that were popping up that were just trying different business models. And this is back in the days when Yahoo was like the king. This is before Google came about. This is before like a lot of the modern day internet that we know and love today exist. So back then it was kind of like the Wild West of the internet. And one of the things that people were trying to do was just kind of get their websites up and running as quickly as possible, but nobody really knew the proper way to do it. Registering a domain name back then, I mean, now everybody knows you just kind of go to GoDaddy or you go to Namecheap or you go to like one of these big registrars and you just fill out a form, you enter your credit card number and you have access to a domain. Back in the days, it wasn't quite that simple. So you had companies like Two Cows where it was a really technical thing, really technical forms they had to fill out to hook up a domain name to your server. And even me back then, I had no idea how to do it. So to kind of fill that void, GeoCities and AngelFire were offering free hosting, free website space for you. And it was kind of like a build your own website type of thing. So like think of Wix today. Or Square, yeah. And think of like their great grandfather, if you want to think in terms of technology. So basically what they did was they gave you a little bit of space. I think back then it was like 10 megs or something, or 5 megs for free. And you would get a GeoCities address, so you would sign up and you would have geocities.com / some random number / some random words. And they would kind of give you a little bit of space on their servers that you could access through FTP. So FTP is basically just basic file transfer protocol. You connect your computer to the host computer and you just send files over. You just send HTML files over. So then you could access your website online. You could see, whatever it is that you typed in or whatever you built would show up on the internet and everyone could access it. So that was kind of neat for like, I think I was 15 or 16 at the time, and I could write something in Notepad. So you think of Windows Notepad. You save it with a .html extension, you use FTP, you send it over to the server, and now it's online and you can access it from anywhere in the world. So that was huge, especially this was 97, 98.
So you had your own website at the time?
Yeah, exactly. And it was, I think thinking back today, right? Like, again, it was the Wild West. So I had like, random screenshots of like Simpsons and like Star Wars and just like random stuff that a 90s nerdy teenager would be into. Right. This is before like you had all these official fan sites and everybody was just kind of putting up whatever they wanted online. I don't think the word blog even existed yet. Like, this is how far back.
How would you like even upload a picture of the Simpsons and shit? I don't even know. Like back then, like how the fuck would you do that?
I think your producer wants to jump. You want to jump in?
He wants to
go.
Jump
Come
in.
on, go for it.
He's itching to jump into this conversation.
No, he pretty much explained it. With FTP, you without getting into technical, you would send all your files onto the server, and then you would program the HTML page to pretty much structure your web page. So everything is on the server. You just structure it so when people come up to your website, it's structured the way you want them to see it.
Right.
Even though back then there wasn't even a protocol for XHTML.
No.
HTML.
No.
No protocol.
It was like HTML. There wasn't HTML. I think we're up to HTML5 now. Back then it was HTML. That was it. It wasn't like a number attached to it.
Okay. And nobody respected any of the...
What is that exactly, the HTML? Is it the address?
So HTML stands for Hypertext Markup Language, and it's the language that you use to write the front end of a website. So whenever you look at anything on a website, that's what you're looking at. You're looking at HTML code that is being translated by the browser into something that you can visit, you can view, you can click on, that you can interact with. In the modern day web, it's gotten a little bit more sophisticated than that, and HTML is still a base, kind of like one of the basic building blocks of the modern day internet. But it doesn't, there's a lot of other technology now that you have to layer on top of it to kind of make it useful. So back in the day, if you want, I can give you a bit of a history lesson about where all this came from, but I don't know how exciting it is.
No, I actually want to talk about the Facebook privacy and
the more modern stuff.
Yeah, the more modern stuff.
So I guess this can kind of tie into it, right? Because so back in the day, people weren't really concerned about privacy and all that sort of thing on internet. The whole premise of being online was that it was anonymous. Back then, if you were kind of logging in, you were probably not using any kind of big vendor. It was just like these tiny little companies that were all over the city that had access to some sort of internet access that they could set up an ISP, so an internet service provider. Back then, nobody really cared about what people were doing online. Online was kind of just like, hey, this is where like nerds are kind of hanging out, and nobody knew what was going on. Over time, obviously, the internet proved to be extremely useful, not just in an academic setting, but just in general. People started using it for communications, and bit by bit it grew into the monster it is today. So fast forward today, and the internet is no longer the anonymous landscape that we're used to seeing, and that's a big shift in terms of what you could do online. There's that meme that says, online nobody knows that you're a dog. So that has the basis in kind of like back in the day, the whole point of being online was that you can kind of do and say whatever you wanted, for better or for worse, and nobody really knew who you were. Today, that's not really quite the case with the advent of things like social media. So what happened recently in the court system was that a lot of people started questioning what was going on, how Facebook is tracking you. And this whole thing started because of the Trump election and the whole Cambridge Analytica thing. And people started really, the general public really started asking questions about what is it that these companies know? What is it that they're controlling? How is this information being handled? And I think it was on The Daily Show that kind of put things in perspective of how crazy the world is that we live in right now. He goes, we are now asking Zuckerberg, who's in charge of Facebook, what his company is doing and how he is going to fix elections and how he's going to protect democracy in the future, right? That's like, yeah, and I forget the guy from The Daily Show. He goes,
Stephen Colbert.
No, this is not Colbert. The current guy, not Colbert. The Daily Show is Trevor Noah. That's it. Thank you. So Trevor Noah goes like, that's ridiculous. Asking Facebook to protect democracy is like turning around to Snapchat guy and going like, hey, there's an asteroid head towards Earth. What do we do? Like, it just doesn't make any sense. This is the world that we live in right now.
Swipe left.
Yeah, exactly. So it's kind of a question of like, how do we get to this point, and how are things kind of changing right now? And the whole thing with the Trump election and the Russia scandal and the Cambridge Analytica stuff is kind of like, it was kind of like the last straw. It was kind of like this huge explosion, and all of a sudden it caught the public interest because people started waking up and realizing the power of what these companies have and how important it is for people to control their own information. So just like back in the day, like early days in the 90s, the internet was pretty much the Wild West and anything goes. People are now starting to realize that, wait a minute, this is not the case anymore. There's a lot more going on here, and we do need to pay attention because this is really going to have effects, and it's going to have an impact on real world day-to-day life for the average citizen, regardless of whether or not you're an internet nerd like me or you're a Wall Street business guy. Like, this is stuff that's going to start affecting our society. So, did you follow the Zuckerberg stuff at all, like the Facebook stuff?
I saw like snippets of him in front of the whole like Senate.
Yeah.
That's what I saw.
Yeah.
Did this one guy got him really good when he's like, Mark Zuckerberg, Mr. Zuckerberg, do you want to share with us what the hotel you stayed at last night? Yeah. And he kind of pins him down to the whole like privacy issue surrounding like sharing all your information online, and he really like checkmate him. But besides that, like all the other senates were like kind of whack, and they didn't like even understand.
Yeah, that's it. I followed it a little bit, and like that was one of the big problems, right? They were asking these questions that are really irrelevant, and it really shows how kind of behind they are in terms of the technology. And this is like a criticism that has been echoed many times by technologists, by scientists, by people in all sorts of different very nuanced fields, where you have these politicians making decisions when they really don't understand the science or the technology behind it, and it's a major problem.
It's also like a huge responsibility for Mark Zuckerberg to try to regulate that. Like, how do you even regulate that? Like, I can't even think of a solution for that.
That's it. And this is the big question right now. So this leads into like what's been happening is that different governments around the world are trying to come up with a framework to regulate this. So what happened was today's the 26th. Yeah. So today's the 26th. Today's May 26th, 2018. Yesterday, May 25th, 2018, was a major day for the kind of the internet having to deal with something called
GDPR?
GDPR. Thank you. I always get the letters mixed up. Yeah. So GDPR is something that the EU government is putting into place. And there's a lot of confusion about it. There's a lot of stuff that's happening. A lot of people don't quite understand it. I think in the last few weeks, you've probably seen a bombardment of companies sending email to you saying, hey, we've just updated our privacy policy. And I think it's been getting, I've seen at least some people noticing it. It's been happening more and more online. So if you're subscribed to anything, everybody's been bombarding you saying that, hey, like we just updated our privacy policy.
But I was under the impression that it was just for the European countries under the EU.
It technically is. So legally it is. Now, the reason we're getting hit by it in North America is because a lot of people think that this is going to be happening here in Canada and in the US as well. So because a lot of these companies operate internationally, they're not, it's not like a McDonald's franchise where they have a physical location in Europe and whatever happens in Europe doesn't affect the location in Canada.
Everything's online.
Everything's online. So it's all in one place. So they're figuring, these companies figure, well, it's probably going to come to Canada. It's probably going to come to the US. It's probably going to hit us sooner or later. If we're going to do it for Europe, we might as well just do it across the board and just do it in one shot. So that's the reason why we've been getting all these emails along with the EU. From a legal perspective, yes, only the EU has to deal with it. But in terms of efficiency, it just makes sense for these companies just to do it everywhere. And that's why we've been seeing all these new emails coming out.
So let me get this straight. If there's a tech company in one of the countries under the EU,
yeah,
and obviously they're online,
yeah,
they would send the update of their privacy changing
yeah,
to all of their clients.
They might as
their
well
users.
at that point. Yeah, exactly.
Okay. And those people are obviously all around the world.
Yeah, exactly. Because I mean, when it comes to the internet, right, it's not as segregated as like your physical location. People are logging in all over the world. Facebook, I think, other than in China and maybe Russia, you have access to Facebook pretty much everywhere. So the other thing too is that a lot of these big companies recently have been moving their headquarters to Ireland because Ireland has an extremely business-friendly tax code. So because of that, all these companies are being hit directly because their headquarters are under EU jurisdiction. So they figure, okay, we might as well just do it everywhere. From my understanding, right, what this whole thing does is that it's supposed to give EU citizens control over their own data. Mm-hmm. So the idea is that if you, as an EU citizen, you are on a website, you have the ability to write directly to the website, email them, call them, whatever the case is, and say, hey, I'd like to know what kind of data you have on me. And you're supposed to have the option to say, hey, I want you to delete all that off your servers. And they're supposed to have some sort of process or some sort of way to do that. Realistically, I'm already seeing a few reports here and there that say that reporters have been testing out their processes, and a couple of big companies have already failed to meet the requirements. So how effective this is a big question mark. It's too early right now to know if there's going to be any lawsuits because of this. And until there's a lawsuit, until something goes to court, it's hard to gauge how effective these new regulations are. So again, this goes back to your original point, right? How do we regulate this? And that's a question that it seems like nobody really has a solid answer to right now. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So like you wouldn't even have an opinion yet on if it's effective or if it's good for the citizens?
Yeah. I don't know.
We just don't know. We just have to wait it out pretty much.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
See if it is good or not.
Yeah, and people are always surprised, right? Because like one of the things that we do at my company is that we do marketing. So obviously anything that we do with online marketing these days, we use Facebook, we use Google, we use their algorithms to help us target ads. Like everybody in the industry does this, and it's no longer a secret. Like when you're logging into Facebook, I'm sure you see ads, and there's no question in your mind that those ads are being sent to you based on your interests.
Exactly. Yeah.
Right. So what people don't realize though is that when you go on to other websites besides Facebook, you're still being tracked because
by Facebook.
By Facebook.
Okay. Yeah.
So this is the thing that people don't realize, right? When you're going on other websites, we use tracking for our clients, and we install what's called a Facebook pixel. So a Facebook pixel is essentially a small piece of code from Facebook that's given to us that we put on our client's website, so that when visitors come to our client's website, we're collecting the Facebook data to a certain degree. Like we won't know that like, oh, Sam came to our website at whatever time, but we'll know in general how many people similar to your profile are visiting the website. So we'll get very like top level matrix. But Facebook has direct information. If you were to dig into Facebook's database, they would be able to say, oh, we can track Sam as he goes from website to website, because all these websites have that little snippet of Facebook code that allows us to track. So people are always shocked to find out that Facebook is tracking you. Even if you don't have Facebook open, chances are the website you're visiting has a piece of Facebook code that knows you're logged in, knows what profile you're logged into, and has all the data to track where you've been. Facebook does this, Google does this. I'm sure LinkedIn is going to start implementing something soon. Like all the big kind of media companies do this sort of thing.
Yeah, and like buying data off of these like big websites is becoming a huge industry of itself, right? And a lot of people, well, Facebook, what they're saying is that like we will never like sell like personalized confidential information about you. If a company wants to hit a demographic of 25-year-olds, between 25 and 34-year-olds, they'll just ask Facebook, hey, we're trying to target males between 25 and 34 in this certain area.
Yeah.
And then it'll
exactly.
just give them a bundle
Yeah.
of like data.
Yeah, exactly.
For that demographic.
Yeah.
But it's not going to be like this super confidential info about like your narcissism on social media. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So there's a so in theory that's absolutely true, right? Like when we're doing marketing online, when we're working with our clients, we're looking at demographics exactly like that. We're targeting 25 to 34-year-old living somewhere in North America. We can target by city. We can target by, in some cases, profession. If you're smart about it, like I have a friend who's probably one of the best Facebook guys in definitely in the city, if not like probably the top guys in North America for Facebook targeting and Facebook marketing. And they're able to drill into demographics and find exactly who they want to find. But it's not personalized to the point where like, I know that I'm targeting Sam. It's just, I know I'm targeting guys like you with your persona and your interests and that sort of thing. So what they've always said is, and this is true, is that they won't sell you like a list of names, for example. I won't be able to go to Facebook and buy a list of like 10,000 names and emails and figure out their exact data.
Yeah.
However, there's been case studies online. There's this one guy who was, this was years ago, so I think they've since fixed the loophole, but he was able to identify and play around with the Facebook ad tools to a point that he was able to target his roommate and screw with him, and it was hilarious. Yeah, there's a great article about it.
Yeah.
And basically he would do things like, he started putting up ads that were targeting him by name and then doing weird things like hiding his toothbrush and go like toothbrush missing and silly little things just to mess with them. But really what he was doing was he was trying to push the envelope to see how specific the Facebook targeting could be. And it was a great article. He did a really great job and he was able to target his roommate and basically screw with him for about a month.
That's hilarious.
Yeah.
Imagine you just go on your Facebook, you're like, word, your dick won't work.
But that's exactly
like,
it. So he was able to do that. So even though the company policy is to say that, no, we won't be able to sell you Sam's information, the question is, can I target Sam directly regardless, just by using the tools that they have? So ever since that article came out, like I said, it came out years ago when the ad system had first started. I know that since then you couldn't do the same thing. There's like a minimum number you have to target. They've added all sorts of extra stuff so that it's much more difficult, if not impossible, to target one person like that. But it's just to say that no system is 100% foolproof. And that's where the danger comes in, right? Like I said, I, as a consumer, and when I say consumer, I'm not saying that I'm a Facebook user. I'm saying that I run a marketing company and we buy ad space from Facebook. That's what I mean when I say consumer. So I, as a consumer, when I go on, I cannot buy specific pieces of information like that. But that's not to say that information doesn't exist on Facebook servers. And that's the danger. When you have like a huge bank of information like that, what happens when eventually there's a hack or there's a leak or a disgruntled employee that has sysadmin access, right? And that's the question that they're kind of hinting at. But I think that's where, without a proper understanding of the technology, this is where that Senate committee was like just a complete disaster. Yeah. They should have been asking questions about, okay, we understand what you do day to day. That's fine. Let's say like you're not doing anything wrong and that's not your intention. But what happens when stuff does leak? What happens when someone does break into your database? What kind of information are you keeping? Are you keeping such granular data that I can target a specific person, or are you anonymizing that data as you store it? So those are the kind of questions that they should have been asking. But the level of understanding that these guys have, they're not going to be able to ask those questions. That's why you had a lot of these like cutscenes where Zuckerberg's almost like, you can tell on his face,
yeah,
he's like dying to eye roll them, because he's like, what are you asking me? Yeah. the questions that they're asking, sometimes they're asking for a yes or no answer when it's a nuance answer, and the nuances is what makes the difference in how he responds. And they won't even let him get that word in because they have like that 3-minute window or whatever the case is, and they want a yes or no. Yeah. And it's not that simple.
I guess like everybody's fear is to get like blackmailed pretty much. Hey, it's like, hey, listen, wire us $50,000 or else we're gonna leak all your nudes to your social media.
Yeah,
like that's the scary thing.
That's definitely an element of it.
yeah, that's probably the scariest thing that could happen to someone, getting sabotaged in that way. The other thing that bothers me about it is how your Facebook is so, or when they're tracing all of your activities online, and they start curating all the ads and videos that show up in front of you.
Yeah.
So you just end up having this narrow worldview. Exactly. And that happens for like all types of people. So there's like racist people that keep on seeing all the racist shit. For myself, it's like I keep seeing like MMA related content, podcast related content, which I do like and I do appreciate, and I kind of enjoy it, especially on YouTube when I just have all the content like just thrown at me, like, oh, awesome, and it works to my advantage at times. But I see how it could be a huge issue.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is what this is at the heart of it, right? The real damage is, you might have a person here or there that gets like their personal information leaked, and that's terrible for that person. Yeah. Like that?
Where you see the audio technical,
the audio tech. Oh, okay, on the little thing. Okay.
Yeah, exactly.
You don't aim straight at it, diagonally. So you're speaking to Sam, diagonally is in the text.
Like
I guess you're pretty good right now.
Like this, that's perfect.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, talk. Yeah, I can hear him.
Yeah, that's perfect.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
fine.
Okay.
Okay, awesome.
Yeah, sorry, it's just because the headphone was like driving me crazy.
Yeah, so some people don't like it, some people like it.
Yeah, I can see that. So so like I was saying, the danger is like, I get that from a personal level. Your personal fear would be, oh man, I don't want my secrets leaked. Oh, I don't want like some guy in Russia having access to my credit card information and buying stuff online. So there's the personal aspect of that, right? For me, the real power, the real problem is the bigger issue of like people in their own little bubbles and having kind of no reason or no desire or no way to step out of that bubble. So what happens is, so going back to the terrible side of it, right? You have these people that are just outright racist. Like there's no question about it. You're just racist. But what happens when you see that everyone else online is racist? Because that's all you see. You're going to say, well, my views are perfectly valid. And that's the real danger, right? That's where Facebook has, and all, not just Facebook, but Facebook, Google, all these media companies, they have the power to be able to shape what you see. People want to have that their own sentiments echoed back to them, and they're getting that validation. And companies are able to target that because now you can say like, well, these are all guys who are kind of racist. I can send them one message. These are guys who are liberal. I can send them another message. And you can start on a more kind of global level or societal level. You can start affecting change the way that you want if you have the money to back it. If you want to start like moving people towards a certain direction, and you know that these two messages, even though they conflict, they're going to move them the way that you want. You can now have these two conflicting messages at the same time to serve your need, and the two conflicting messages, those audiences will never see each other because they're in their own little bubble. So it's kind of like this weird segregation that's happening online, and to me that is kind of the bigger danger, and it's a bigger problem because while Reddit and Facebook and Google, all these companies are creating these bubbles, at the end of the day it's up to that person to say like, hey, I'm going to step out, I'm going to see what else is going on the other side. So like I've been telling people this, that if you look at my subreddits, it's not a secret that most of my views are pretty liberal, but I also signed up for our conservative. I'm following some of the states to see what's going on with the politics. I'm following kind of opposing views just to see what's happening. And a lot of the times, if you take it on face value, like what they're saying is not crazy. Like some of the stuff that comes up on the conservative subreddits, they're making valid points. It's just that when you don't take the time to step out, you always see the other side as being way, way further away from you as it is. And like this is one of those things in philosophy, right? The idea that like the false dichotomy that we have, the idea that people in your in-group have the same view as you and everyone else outside has the opposing view. Well, you probably agree on a lot more than you think, but if you never reach out to those other groups, you never get their side of the story, you're always going to assume that everything that you think they're just 100% opposed to, and it's not like that. It's more nuanced than that.
Right.
And this is the bigger issue. So yes, there's a technology component to it, and this goes back to the question, is it fair to use like Facebook and Reddit and Google as almost scapegoats to say, well, you guys are at fault, you guys have to fix this, you guys created this problem? While elements of that are true, I think it's also a bigger issue that people need to be educated. People need to think critically about the media that they're consuming, and they need to be able to have the tools or have like the foresight to step out of their bubble, like willingly.
It comes down to the individual's responsibility to be a critical thinker.
Exactly. Yeah.
While you're maneuvering online.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, and that's a much more difficult thing, right?
Well, yeah, I think it's actually less difficult than giving the responsibility for companies, because companies obviously they have their self-interest in mind and they have to make money, right? So they obviously want to give you the content that you're looking for.
Yeah, exactly.
So they have to do that so that they get website visits and they get the clicks.
Yeah.
So they have no choice. So like it's hard for them to have that as one of the functionalities of their website and then be democratic about it at the same time. It's like I can't even like envision how you're supposed to do that.
Yeah,
you know?
they're opposing goals, right?
Yeah.
Like, and that's the thing. Like, does it make sense? And it goes back to the Trevor Noah thing. It's crazy. We're asking Facebook, a private company, public company, but we're asking a company to defend democracy. Like that doesn't make sense. It doesn't
make sense. Yeah.
So that's kind of world that we live in. It's really weird. Now there are other things that Facebook is doing absolutely in other parts of the world that it's very clear that they're in the wrong. But when it comes to the privacy thing, when it comes to the defending democracy thing, it's a really weird place to be in.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's crazy, man. What's happening? But yeah, I love it, man. Like just all, like the thing is, I felt like I was disciplined enough to, and I did what you did, and I followed like different pages, like especially on Facebook. I follow left wings and right wing pages online, and I follow all the different media outlets. So that was my way of maneuvering online and making sure that I get all the different perspectives.
Yeah.
And just to keep up with everything, my Facebook feed is also oversaturated of content and like different media outlets reporting on the same issues, but sometimes they hit it with different angles.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
it's always interesting to watch that. But I wanted to know also about net neutrality and if it impacts Canada. Because I know it's a U.S. thing.
Yeah, it's a U.S. thing, and we're very fortunate that like him or hate him, the Trudeau government has made a very, very strong stance to defend net neutrality. And there's a lot of when I talk to people, there seems to be a lot of confusion about like what kind of net neutrality is, or why it's important to defend, or why it's kind of like. Why it's an important subject that people should know about. And as soon as it gets a little bit technical, I feel like a lot of people just kind of zone out. So even people who are for net neutrality, who want net neutrality, sometimes get mixed up and they're like, oh, net neutrality is bad. I'm like, why? And once we have a conversation, I realize that they just got a few facts wrong, or they just flipped a few details.
From my understanding, it's just that companies are going to be allowed to slow down the server, and then you're going to have to pay to have a faster server.
Yeah, that's one aspect of it. So what net neutrality means is essentially that the technical thing is that all network traffic should be treated equally, regardless of source, regardless of destination, right? So that means that if you're downloading something from Facebook, it should come in just as fast as if you're downloading it from Google, or if you're downloading something from Reddit, or you're watching YouTube. All of that traffic, regardless of what the source is, should all be treated the same. It should come in at the same speed. There's a problem with the server, that's a different issue, but there should not be an artificial cap to slow down that traffic just because it's coming from a certain place. So essentially that's what net neutrality is.
Okay, I thought it was actually putting the speed at the hands of like the companies.
Exactly. So if you're against net neutrality, that means that you are for letting companies decide what traffic gets prioritized.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And this is what I mean. A lot of people get these facts mixed up.
Wait. So if you're against net neutrality?
If you're against net neutrality, that means that you are okay with the idea of a company controlling which traffic comes to you faster or slower.
Okay, so I'm for net neutrality.
Yeah.
Oh shit. Okay.
This is what I mean.
Before this, I thought I was against it.
Yeah,
but
your producer's nodding.
It's essentially what it means is we can maybe even stretch it to a certain point to say they control what gets to you to that point.
Yep.
Because what people don't know is companies already pay for bandwidth to have better faster services and whatnot, to provide faster have a bigger lanes to provide to a bigger audience. So they already pay for the bandwidth, which you don't pay. You just pay for the bandwidth you use at home. So pretty much 15 megabits or whatever. But at this point, they control the bitrate at it, and they even can control at some point if you even get that data. Even though they don't talk about it, that could be the point. They could make it so expensive that the barrier of entry is too high, so some companies just won't pay to get to reach you. Therefore, they're kind of like blocking them to reach you. Versus now, anybody, let's take the podcast for instance. We don't have the budget for that Facebook has. So if this were to come to play, Facebook could pay the bill from Bell, Rogers, or whatever, and have everybody access Facebook. Us, since we don't have the budget of Facebook, we couldn't get to the customers that are on Bell and Rogers network. We could get it on just like maybe one ISP and like, I don't know, to the slowest speeds, to the point that it's on you. If they were to download one episode, it would take them like a week, for instance.
Oh damn! So yeah, they wouldn't even like bother. It wouldn't even show up.
Yeah, and that's one of the consequences of what it could be. So like, the idea is like, I'm sorry, I can't remember your name for the life of me.
It's Amin.
Amin. Okay, I thought it was Amin, but I wasn't sure. So like Amin was saying, right? Like the idea is that all companies currently already have to pay to make sure that the servers are up, make sure they have good bandwidth, make sure they can serve whatever. But that is a technical issue. Net neutrality, if we get rid of net neutrality, it becomes an artificial slowdown that the companies control. So like, even though like Netflix has been fighting against it, right? Because if Netflix is already paying to have their infrastructure set up so that everybody gets access to Netflix quickly, it sucks for Netflix if all of a sudden Videotron says, we're going to artificially slow down your traffic just because we want to.
Yeah, that's fucked up.
Yeah, so essentially what that would do is it would give Videotron, I'm just using Videotron's example, not to say that they're doing this, but Videotron in this instance, in that scenario, would be able to say to Netflix, like, well, if you want to reach our customers, you got to pay us X. So they're holding their customers essentially hostage. And that's one of the possible consequences of getting rid of net neutrality. Like I said, we've been very, very fortunate in Canada that the Trudeau government has made a very, very strong stance that net neutrality will be protected in Canada. There's no question about it.
We have net neutrality in Canada. Okay, that's a good thing.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, in the States, there is all that stuff about the open market. Did you see my my article on my blog about the net neutrality thing?
Was it about the Google Chrome one?
No, the Agit Pay, the video, I think the title was something silly like, they just said something that pissed me off so badly I had to write this blog.
Seven things you can still do after net neutrality is gone, or something.
That was the video. Yeah, that was the video, and it's such a condescending bullshit video. Like it pissed me off so much. I just jumped on my company's blog and I just quickly wrote a thing about it. Right. So basically, this guy is in charge of the FCC, which is a governing. I don't even think it's an official governing body. There's a little bit of sketchiness around it, because these people are not elected. They're kind of placed there by the office of the president, and they have a lot of control over how networks are kind of set up in the States. So this guy, I think it's Ajit Pai, I think is his name. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing it properly, but he is, I believe he used to work for Comcast, and he's just a super sketchy guy that I'm pretty sure he's getting money from the big telecoms to try to get rid of net neutrality. And the reason they want to get rid of net neutrality is because the companies in the States, so think of like everybody who goes online complains about their cell phone service or their internet access. Those companies now would be able to slow down traffic for any company that doesn't play ball. So
wait, say that again?
So those companies, like what's the joke online that everybody hates, like the fact that they're stuck with Verizon or they're stuck with like all these US companies.
Verizon apparently is like super slow.
Yeah, Verizon is super slow. These companies don't have any reason to kind of fix up their networks because if you look at a map of the US and you look at the coverage maps for each of these different companies, it's very, very clear that they have handshake, backroom deals where they don't really overlap in each other's networks. So they have each literally carved out a piece of the US territory that they can function in. So even if you didn't want to use Verizon, for example, in your area, you might not have a choice. Unless you're in a big urban center, you might be stuck with Verizon because that's the only company that comes to you.
Because the alternative would be way too slow.
Exactly.
Right.
So they already have, in a sense, a hold over the U.S. population. So, like these people are stuck with them, and I read the horror stories about that online all the time. So now imagine you add on that another layer, where now these people that are using Verizon, and again, I'm not saying Verizon is doing this, but I'm just using it as an example, right? So these people are stuck with company X because company X is the only one that serves their area. You add another layer, and now company X is saying, well, if we're blocking Netflix, or we're slowing down Netflix to an unreasonable degree, artificially for no reason. If you want us to unblock it for you, it's going to cost you an extra X number of dollars per month.
Yeah, that's so whack.
Yeah, so that's what would happen, or that's one of the potential consequences of getting rid of net neutrality. They can then artificially decide to slow down different network traffic depending on the source. Now, their argument for that is that people right now who are using Netflix or YouTube or any of these like streaming services are prioritizing or causing slowdowns on the network because they're putting so much traffic from those sources onto their infrastructure, and that's the argument that they've been using. Now, if you don't think about it too much, you're like, okay, that makes sense. I can see why these companies would need to protect their infrastructure. But if you understand the technology, the whole argument falls apart. If you're streaming more from one service or another, you're still using essentially the same bandwidth. You're still using the same network. You're still using the same infrastructure. It doesn't cost these companies anything more. It doesn't cost them anything more. It doesn't cost them anything less. The argument that they're making that they need this is, again, really a bullshit argument that they're just trying to pass off to people who don't understand the technology. And when you look at what happened with the Zuckerberg thing and you look at the questions they're asking, you realize that, wow, these people really do not understand the nuances of what they're governing on. So you get situations where these companies can make these bullshit arguments and it flies. And stuff like net neutrality gets repealed, and these have major consequences for the population. So it's tricky, right? Because you need to have the will and the interest to look into these things to understand it, even as a layman. And if you don't, I mean, these things are going to affect you regardless. So it's kind of like a tricky time that we live in right now. And we can also see kind of there are parts of the world right now where net neutrality just doesn't exist. So one of the things I always point to is places in like a lot of the countries in Africa, right? They don't have net neutrality. It's kind of a free-for-all. And there's an organization called internet.org. And internet.org, what they say that they do is that their mandate is to bring internet access around the world, to the entire world. And they go around and they make sure that places that don't have the infrastructure, they'll go and help them set up the infrastructure so that the people there can get internet access. On the face of it, that sounds great. In reality, internet.org is actually a Facebook company. And it's a Facebook company that was started by, I believe Zuckerberg and his wife started it. And yes, they are bringing internet to places in Africa, like certain countries in Africa that don't necessarily have the infrastructure, and they are putting money into it. But what they don't tell you is that they're only giving free internet access via Facebook. So what they're doing is they're making deals with telecom companies in Africa. And the deal that they're making is that when they give people data plans, the data plan only allows them to access whatever's on Facebook and nothing else. So if you see a link and you click on it, it may or may not work depending on whether or not that's part of the network. So you already have countries in Africa that don't have net neutrality. And what we're seeing is essentially Facebook is the only company that is controlling how these people interface with the internet. There's countries now that the citizens don't understand the difference between internet and Facebook. They see it as one and the same. And the danger of that is, again, you control the flow of information, you control the messages. This goes back to our bubbles that we're talking about. They have a lot less regulations in some of these countries. Some of the governments are not super stable, or some of them are corrupt. These telecom companies are willing to take money from a big player like Facebook. And all of a sudden you have a company that can control a population through the message and the medium that they consume.
Yeah.
And that's a scary thing.
Yeah, I see your point, but in this particular case of like Africans not even having internet, I think it would be a benefit to have at least Facebook. You know what I mean? You can maneuver somewhat on Facebook and see, like, it opens your mind to a lot of different things and a lot of content. And I get your point that it might, like, it segregates them and it makes them believe that this is the internet, it's Facebook, and they can't search for I guess content and do their own research because of that. But I would pick having Facebook over no internet at all. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and that's totally a valid point, right?
Yeah.
And again, it's much more nuanced than that, but people should be aware that this is what's happening, so that we can keep an eye on Facebook and say, hey, you guys are acting like a big telecom company. That should be regulated. If people are not aware of that and they just take it on face value, if you didn't know any better, you say like, oh, internet.org is a wonderful organization that's just giving internet to people. What a great thing they're doing. But it's important to understand where that money is coming from. It's important to think ahead and kind of understand why it is that a company like Facebook might be interested in getting internet out to these people, and what other aspects of it are there. Because at the end of the day, like you said, there's the public interest and then there's the company interest, and they don't always overlap. There's a few things that might make sense, but there's a lot of stuff there that's just outright conflicting.
I like to think that it's gonna like kind of self-regulate itself. There's always a push and pull, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Between the people and then the companies and then the governments. Everybody just push and pulls, and hopefully the good will surface.
Yeah,
you know what
absolutely.
I mean? That's what I'm hoping for, at least.
And I hope for that as well. And I think a large part of that happening properly is that people need to be educated about this stuff. They need to understand what's going on with their technology and have like at least enough of an understanding so that when something happens, like the net neutrality thing, they can stand up and say like, whoa, that's not okay.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, like I'm glad that you came through and enlightened me. It's a huge task to pretend to understand everything that you're saying, but I try to keep up as best as I could. But yeah, like I didn't even know I was for net neutrality, so that it's a good thing to learn.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, that's why I wanted to bring you through, and I was like, there's so many things I just don't understand, and I'm glad that you made it more clear for myself, and hopefully to the people that are watching this are gonna have a better understanding of net neutrality, or
absolutely.
like the whole privacy issues and whatnot. But yeah, do you have any advice for people and how to protect your information or anything like that? Do you share anything to your clients when they want a website and they want to make sure that security is a big like concern for them?
Yeah, well, that's the thing, right? There's when you're talking about security, there's different things. A company, all they care about, like when we talk about security for our clients, all they care about is making sure that their website's not gonna get hacked, that their system's not gonna go down, that their client information is safe.
Yeah, cybersecurity is like a huge thing now.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
And they're giving out courses, and like my friend was like he wanted to do that, and apparently you get like a certificate in certain universities where you become like a cybersecurity for companies.
Oh yeah, it's a huge industry now because people are starting to realize that like there's a lot going on. There's always new attacks coming out every day. I could probably talk your ear off about like security stuff as well, but yeah, it's a major issue right now where technology is moving very quickly and we are lacking. There's a huge gap where we do not have enough people to fill these jobs and fill these roles. And one of the biggest things is cybersecurity. We have major gaps when it comes to big data, major gaps when it comes to artificial intelligence research. So yeah, it's a really interesting time to be not only involved in the industry, but I'm very lucky that, I'm running a small tech company. We get to deal with all this stuff day in, day out. We happen to be versed in marketing and communications. So we're just in a very, very interesting spot right now where a lot of these things just kind of overlap in things that I personally am interested in.
Awesome. Is there any tech oh shit, I just spat on myself. Any tech topics that you can think of?
I'm trying to find something that is relatable to the average audience and not just to the techie.
Yeah, this was like me keeping up with Sheldon Poon was like so difficult for me. I was like, damn, I didn't sleep last night. I went out. I did the mistake of going out. But I barely did research. But I did read your article about how you're annoyed at the fact that certain customers come up to you because you're a programmer and you build websites for them, and they always come up to you and they're like, I just want something simple.
Yeah. Yeah, Amin's laughing because I think he's dealt with those types of clients. Yeah,
and then you could use the example of like Google. You know what I mean? If someone comes up to you and it's just a search engine with a name on top of it.
Yeah.
But the body of work behind a website like Google is so huge. So when clients come up to you and they don't understand like programming and websites and how much work there is to do.
Yeah.
They're like, I just want a website, but keep it simple. And and you were saying in the article how creating a functionality of simplicity
Yeah.
is actually more work than having like a different type of a website that is not seen as simple.
Yeah, that's it. Like simple, and you read the article, right? So simple means many, many different things. Simple to most people means easy to use. But the easier something is to use, the more work, the more thought, the more planning goes into it.
Yeah.
So I always use the example that simplest thing in the world, ask Siri a question, Siri responds to you. Now, if I ask you to build Siri, the amount of AI, the amount of technology, the networking that goes into that, the mind of the engineers, these are some of the smartest people in Silicon Valley, if not the world, right? These are the minds that put their effort into building Siri, and Siri is simple.
Yeah.
And that's always the example that I use.
Or even Google.
Yeah, Google is same thing. Absolutely. Any of these things, any interface that's quote unquote simple is what's going to take time. To me as a programmer, right? If you tell me, hey, build me something simple, I will make you the most complicated, difficult tool to use in the world. But from my point of view, well, I only put like an hour work into this. So for me, it's simple. It really does. It's really important to define your terms when it comes to that sort of thing. And yeah, that's one of the things that kind of.
So what are the price tags
for
like a website? Can you share that?
Yeah, I mean, we usually.
Like if I wanted a website, chimptalk.com. What's up? But I got a programmer on the team. That's why I'm in Mabruk is in the team.
Yeah, absolutely.
I made sure I got myself a programmer.
Now that you mention that domain, you better make sure you pick up the domain before you put this podcast out, because otherwise it's going to be gone.
But I think we did that.
Actually, the chimptalk.com is a premium domain, so now it's up to $3,000 if you want it.
Oh,
so what we did instead,
it's such a racket. Yeah,
we have chimptalkpodcast.com. This one we already own.
Okay.
I'm constructing actually two versions of the website. One that says it's under construction, and it's just like the most bland default template that there is out there. Just
simple.
Just to have something out there.
It's like I'm working construction work.
Okay.
And then,
ideally.
And then behind it, the second that I'm building is the actual website that I want people to familiarize with. So the color palette and all that, and the functionalities are behind it.
Yeah, that's awesome. So like it's just to answer your question, right? It really depends. What we always do is we take a top-down approach. So and stop me because I can talk your ear off about my company. But basically, we did a bit of a rebranding recently, and we're about to launch a new brand, and we really want to understand as what it is about us, and what is it that drives my company, that drives everybody at the office. And what we came up with was basically we're the quiet, nerdy guys in the back of the room, and we just love solving problems. We love building things. We love solving problems. What drives us crazy is when we see waste. So if it's a wasteful code, wasteful design, wasteful process, like we hate that stuff. We always try to clean it up. We always try to make it better. So that's who we are. And we like to align ourselves with people like that. So because of who we are, because of how we approach problems, we always kind of take like a top-down approach. So we try to understand our clients' needs from a business perspective, because there's no point in spending money on something if it doesn't bring value to what your business is doing. So we always focus on what is it that the website is supposed to do for your business. Are you trying to get more clients? Are you trying to sell more stuff? Are you just trying to have an online presence so that people know what you're about? So once we identify kind of like what it is that they need and where does the website fit into the company, then we break it down to say, okay, well, you need A, B, C, D. A general website, you're talking usually about, if it's a template, it's like 40 hours of work, give or take. With that, you have about 10 hours of planning. You have about 20 hours of actual like design for the front end, making sure everything works on mobile. And then you have another 10 hours of actual hardcore programming where we're connecting up the database, connecting up our content management system. So 40 hours is usually like ballpark. And
wait, okay, it takes you 40 hours to build a website?
40 billable hours, yeah. I mean, there's a lot of like project management, QA, and all sorts of other admin stuff that we don't count. But yeah, 40 hours of an actual programmer sitting there working and building stuff out.
Damn, and what's the price tag for that?
We charge $100 an hour, so it's about $4,000. And the feedback that we get from people, especially from like our US clients, is like, man, you guys are cheap. And the quality of the work that we do, we've done projects for like $3,000 or $4,000, and when I show people who are in the industry, I'm like, hey, like, you know, give me some feedback. They're like, oh my god, this is like a $25,000 site. We're like, no, like, we should have charged more clearly, but no, it's not a $25,000 site. It's just like a $4,000 or $5,000 site.
It sounds super affordable, like if you're serious about launching your business. But what's the difference between you and companies like Square?
So, okay, we work with clients who we want to kind of partner with more long term, right? Uh, the type of clients that we want to work with, we try to be their web department for their company. So the idea is that if you ever work in a large company, you have multiple departments. When you have one department head talking to another department head, they're not micromanaging the other guy's team. They don't care. They're gonna come together. They're gonna say like, hey, this is our mandate for this quarter. This is what we want to hit in terms of like our business goals. And I need your guys to take care of this aspect, this business aspect of things. And that's how we like to work with our partners, where I can have a conversation and it's a business level conversation. So like for your website, for example, like we'll take Chimp Talk as an example. So like, let's say you came to me and you said, hey, like I need help with my site. I would say, okay, well, what is it you want to achieve? You want people to have better experience when they're on your site to listen to your podcast. You want to use it for promotions. You need landing pages. Like, let's discuss for your business, what do you need your site to do? What is it that you need your site to achieve? And then we'll be able to take a look at all of your existing material, all your existing copy. We'll boil it down the message so that the message is impactful to your audience, and we'll help you come up with strategies for how to get that message out. And then we'll build everything around that. When you go to a Wix or like a Square or whatever, it's gonna go, well, here's your tools.
Yeah.
Good luck.
Yeah.
So it's a very different experience, right? And like what we pride ourselves in, it's like, yes, we use different tools, but it's the service. And that at the end of the day, that's what we're pushing. It's that we are really partners with our clients, and our goal is to make sure that their business grows. It's to make sure that they are achieving their business goals.
Right. So like once you build the website for them, do they keep in touch with you?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. A lot of our clients have us on retainer because, again, they think of us as an internal department. When you're working in a big company and you have a problem, you want to pick up the phone and you want to talk to the manager of the other department. You don't want to have to discuss every single time like, oh yeah, well, let's negotiate budget, let's do this, let's do that. Oh, I don't know if I can afford that, and then you have to like go through a whole contract negotiation again. You don't do that in a big company because it's not efficient. So just like it's not efficient in a big company, we don't like doing that with our clients. We have the initial contract that we work with, we have the initial retainer, and then after that, they need something, they pick up the phone, they call me, we tell them like, this is the operating budget I need for the year to keep your stuff up to date, to keep it running, and they can continue running their business. Like awesome. Their focus is their business, not the website.
Okay, cool. And you founded this company, right?
Yeah. Well, my business partner and I founded it in 2013, I think, officially. Yeah. On paper, it's 2013.
Yeah. Okay, yeah. And I met you, I think it was 2015.
Yeah, like the company was around, but it wasn't like it wasn't really running.
I remember coming to your office to study philosophy.
Yes.
Was it Saint Henri area?
Yeah, it's in Saint Henri, just across.
Is it still there now?
Yeah, it's still there.
Okay,
We've taken over the upstairs now. So the entire upstairs is ours. I have like my office, and then my programmers have the one across the hall, and then we use the downstairs as a conference area.
Do you just like manage now, or do you still program?
I've actually been told by my team to stop touching their code. So my job now is just kind of more consultation, deal with clients, figuring out like that pinpoint message, and doing more of the communication strategy and that sort of thing. Yeah.
And it's funny because I remember like having you on my podcast, meeting you and everything, and then trying to have you on my podcast, and then you were too busy. Then I was like, oh, it's all good. And then I had Jesse on, your brother-in-law.
Yeah.
And I had no idea at the time that it was your brother-in-law. So it was so funny it's such a small world to sit down with him and have a discussion with him, but now he's in Ireland. Yeah,
that's right. Because you were at JKS, right? That's how you met him?
Like, he was my MMA coach.
Nice.
And he came on the podcast. I think it was episode 2. And I had a good time talking to him. And ideally, I would have wanted you and him at the same time.
I know, but he took off.
Yeah, he took off. He's in Ireland right now doing stand-up comedy and training MMA, right?
That's yes, I know he's doing stand-up, and he's starting to build quite the name for himself, apparently.
Oh yeah.
He's having a lot of success there, which is awesome. He's shown us some videos of some of his stuff. It's pretty good. And then I don't know if he's still training. I imagine he is, because it's just built into who he is. And I know he got like an office job or something, so he's set up pretty nicely in Ireland. Yeah,
good for him. And man, if ever he comes down to Montreal, I would love to have him on the show. But I'm gonna wrap this up soon because I need to run to the bathroom. But before I wrap it up, I usually ask my guests something that they're grateful for.
Grateful for.
And you could take a moment to think about it.
Honestly, like a few years ago, I was still working like an office job, and as great as that place was, it was working at the school board. As great as that place was, you know, it was my time to move on, and it was pretty scary when you met me. It was a weird time in my life because I was just kind of in transition, and I was leaving my cushy, safe job, and I was starting my company, starting philosophy. Like I was just kind of shifting my life in a different direction, and looking back on that now and where I'm at now, where I'm starting to see the light at the end of the tunnel, so to speak, and the company's starting to take off, and I'm starting to have more like a little bit more free time to breathe again and do awesome stuff like a podcast with you. I'm very grateful for just where my life is at the moment. I've just been incredibly lucky with the people I've met that have helped me out. Incredibly lucky that we've had great clients, that I've had great friends and family to support me. So I'm just kind of grateful for where my life is at right now in general. I'm just happy about that.
Awesome, man. Thanks for sharing that. I'm gonna wrap this up, but do you want to do a plug-in for your website or
yeah, sure. I mean, we're the company is Drive Marketing, so you can find us at drivemarketing.ca. Not the .com. Unfortunately, we couldn't get the .com because there's another Drive Marketing down in the States. But we're the Canadian Drive Marketing, so drivemarketing.ca. And we're going to be launching our new site and our new brand in the next few weeks. So hopefully by the time the podcast gets out and people start visiting our site, they're going to see the new branding and the new logo and new stuff.
Awesome, man. Once again, thank you for coming. I'm going to wrap this up. This is my guest, Sheldon Poon. I'm Sam Asherbo, your host. This was Chimp Talk. Please subscribe if you like it or if you want to support us. Thank you.
Thanks, man.
Man, I gotta pee.